Good afternoon.
We'll get started in just 1 minute. Okay, good afternoon. I'm showing it's 2 o'clock and we have our committee and chair present. So with that, Chair Edwards, I'll turn it over to you to start the meeting.
Perfect. Good afternoon and welcome to the Telephonic Rules and Regulations Committee meeting for November the 10th, 2020. I'm Regent Veronica Muskies-Edwards, chair of this committee. The time is 2 o'clock p.m. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Secretary of State as required by Texas Open Meetings Act, Government Code, Chapter 551. Please note that the audio of this meeting is being broadcast live. Before we take roll call, I'd like to remind everyone to please mute their phones unless you need to speak. And Laura, with that, if we could begin roll call with committee members and the other regions.
Sure, good afternoon. Chair Edwards.
Here.
Regent Flores.
Here.
Regent Tinsley.
Here.
Regent Scott.
Here.
Do we have any other regents on the call? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. May we now have roll call for System Office Representative?
Sure. Dr. McCall?
Here.
Vice Chancellor Harper?
Here.
Thank you. Sean Cunningham?
Here.
Nellie Arrota?
Here.
Derek Alexander?
Here.
Carol Fox?
Here.
Do we have Dr. Hayek?
Here.
Thank you. And do we have any other system representatives on the call? Thank you.
Thank you again. May we now have roll call for component representative?
Sure. Let's start with Lamar University.
Ken Evans and Jeremy Altop.
Thank you. Sam Houston.
Carlos Hernandez.
Thank you, Carlos. Sol Ross. Do we have anyone from Sol Ross? Texas State.
Denise Strauss here, and also Eric Algo, Jean Bourgeois, and Lisa Lloyd are on the call.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Strauss. LIT.
Lonnie Howard, Bonnie Albright, Carrie Mix, and Angela Hill.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. Lamar State College Orange.
Tom Johnson, Hattie Collins, Mary Wickland, and Wendy Elmore.
Thank you. And finally, Lamar State College Port Arthur.
Betty Renard and Mary Wickland.
Thank you, Dr. Renard. And then did we have anyone with Sol Ross call in? Okay, thank you. I'll check with them. That concludes roll call.
Appreciate it. And with that, I'd like to note that Nellie Herrera briefed me on the agenda items prior to the meeting. And at this time, I'd ask that she present the Rules and Regulations Committee agenda items. Nellie?
Thank you, Chairwoman Edwards. We have 3 proposed rule changes. The first rule change concerns system component operations, and the rule is found in Chapter 3, Paragraph 3.1. This proposed rule change clarifies that motions for contracts are presented to the board versus actual contracts, and that motions must contain certain detailed information about the contractual transaction. The proposed rule change also requires that motions be approved by the Vice Chancellor and General Counsel and by the Vice Chancellor and Chief Financial Officer. And finally, the first proposed rule change permits the board to postpone consideration of any motion at its discretion to enable the board an opportunity to review and discuss the contract document itself. I should note that this proposed rule change actually conforms with our current process. Chairwoman Edwards, I'm happy to take any questions anyone may have about the first proposed rule change, and if there are no questions, I will move on to the second proposed rule change.
Thank you, Nellie. You can go ahead and move on to the next rule change if nobody's got any questions.
The second proposed rule change concerns component personnel, and the rule is found in Chapter 5, Paragraph 2.141. Now, this proposed rule change involves employment grievance matters. The rule change provides guidance to a grievant, to component administration, and a hearing officer as to the evidence required in order to sustain a grievance or to dismiss a grievance. The term has been previously, the term of prima facie is how we have generally provided guidance here in this rule. We have given the definition of prima facie, and the definition that we have used is based on Supreme Court precedents. We believe that by providing definition and to this term that's used in the rule of prima facie, this will give clarity to the rule and will help individuals understand what amount of evidence or what type of evidence is needed in order to either sustain a grievance or to dismiss a grievance. Chair Edwards, I'm glad to answer any questions anyone may have about the second proposed rule change, but if there are no questions, I'll move on to the third and final proposed rule change.
Off to the next one. Thank you.
All right. The third and the final proposed rule change also concerns component personnel, and the rule is found in Chapter 5, Paragraph 4.443 and 4.444. This proposed rule change specifically involves faculty grievances. Now, this proposed rule change does the same thing as the second rule change, in that we have defined the term prima facie in order to clarify the rule and to give guidance to grievance to the component administration and to the hearing officers. As with the second rule change, by defining the term prima facie, we are clarifying the evidence considered sufficient to either warrant dismissal of a grievance or to sustain a grievance. And Chairwoman Edwards, that concludes my presentation. Unless there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I appreciate it, and I do also appreciate all the feedback and recommendations that are coming up from the component representatives and system office representatives and the hard work you and your team are doing. So thank you very much for being so responsive, because these updates are very important as we move forward, adding clarity to rules and regulations. So moving on, are there any items that any regents want to move off the agenda for today? Regent Flores?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Tinsley? No, thank you. Okay, perfect. I know Chair Scott is on as well, and do you have any inputs or comments you'd like to add at this point?
No, but thank you.
Perfect. So with your permission, Regent Flores and Regent Tinsley, I move that we recommend board approval of the rule changes to the consent agenda. Regent Flores, do you agree?
I agree.
Thank you. Regent Tinsley, do you agree?
I agree.
So once again, I appreciate everyone for calling in. Unless there's further discussion, this concludes the telephonic meeting for today. And for the record, the time is 2:08, and that might be a record for us getting on and having such a substantive conversation. I don't want y'all to get used to that or anything, but I do appreciate it. Next week we'll be seeing each other as we move forward for our Regents meeting. Anything else? If not, I'll conclude the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Good
you.
meeting. Bye-bye.